Hello, everybody. Today we're going to look at a article called Deadliest Workplace Disasters. And let's see if we can get this going. Here we go. Deadliest workplace accidents, excuse me. It's going to go back even before my time, believe that or not. January 10th, 1860. January 10th is my birthday, but not 1860. Lawrence, Massachusetts. The Pemberton Mill, a large cotton goods factory, collapses without warning, killing an estimated 145 workers and injuring another 166. It's one of the worst industrial accidents in the state's history. Now, I have a little bit of experience with cotton processing, and cotton is nasty. It'll burn, it'll flash when there's dust, and bales of cotton will stay smoldering for literally weeks if they're on fire. So let's move ahead to 1878. Minneapolis, Minnesota. 4 flour dust inside the Washington Mill ignites, causing an explosion that levels a 7.5-story building and blows the roof several hundred feet into the air. 18 workers die. Flour dust. So combustible dust, of course, was around back then. It's always been around pretty much. May 1st, 1900, Schofield, Utah. 200 men in a Pleasant Valley Coal Company mine lost their lives when 24 kegs of black powder accidentally explode. Someone had to set it off. We don't know what that is, and probably never will. March 20th, 1902, Brockton, Massachusetts. Following a boiler explosion, the 4-story wooden R.B. Grover's Company's shoe factory collapses and bursts into flames, burning workers trapped in a wreckage. 58 people died and 150 are injured. I'm going to look at my phone here because it's dinging at me. I'm going to shut it off. All right. 58 people died, 150 injured. 4-story wooden shoe factory bursts into flames. Not a surprise, is it? May 19th, 1902. Coal Creek, Tennessee, an explosion in a Freighterville coal mine takes the lives of at least 184 men and boys. The cause was most likely a buildup of methane gas. Men and boys. In those back then, 1902, boys worked in the mines too. December 6, 1907, Monaga, West Virginia, in the worst mining disaster in American history, an underground explosion kills 362 out of 300 men and boys working that day. There we go, men and boys again working. How sad. January 20th, 1909, Lake Michigan, Chicago, Illinois. Approximately 60 workers constructing a water intake tunnel a mile offshore died after a powder magazine explodes. Made entirely of wood, their living quarters quickly catch fire. The flames spread throughout the construction site, trapping the men between the fire and the ice-filled water. Not a rock and a hard place, but it's hot and a cold place. May 5th, 1910, Palos, Alabama. A coal mine explosion traps 145 men, more than 80 of whom die. You can see coal mines were not a very safe place to work back then. March 25th, 1911, New York, New York, one of the most famous fires in American history. Workers at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory became trapped after a tossed match ignites an enormous fire. Exits are blocked, and several people jump out of the 9th and 10th floor windows and attempt to escape. Where we see that happen on 9/11 also. The 146 victims were mostly women and girls. A shirtwaist is just a blouse for a woman. It's just what they called it. At the time all the working women wore it. Was a thing to have. This was a big factory making a lot of stuff, and somebody just tossed a match. And the thing here is it didn't have to happen. All these people died, but they blocked exits. And you're going to see that probably happen again in this video here. October 22nd, 1913, Dawson, New Mexico. The Stag Canyon coal mine collapses after a controlled underground detonation sets off large explosions of dust. Out of the 284 men in the mine, 261 die, along with 2 rescue workers. Wow. June 8th, 1917, Granite Mountain, Montana. At a North Butte Mining Company copper mine, a lamp flame sets fire to uncovered insulation. A mine shaft erupts in flames, killing 164 men. It's bad enough that these deaths are happening, but my God, the way they're happening, being basically burned alive. January 15th, 1919, Boston, Massachusetts, also known as the Great Molasses Flood. 21 people die and 150 are injured when a storage tank bursts at Purity Distilling Company and a giant wave of molasses speeds through the streets of Boston's north end neighborhood at 35 miles an hour. And we always thought molasses by definition was slow, but this didn't happen there at 35 miles an hour. March 8, 1924, Castlegate, Utah. A miner ignites a pocket of methane gas while lighting his safety lamp, causing an underground explosion that kills 172 men. A little bit of irony in that, isn't there? 1930s, Boulder City, Nevada. Over a 5-year construction period of the Hoover Dam, there are at least 96 construction-related deaths, though accurate records were not kept. Many are caused by carbon monoxide poisoning in the diversion tunnels. So they're down there in probably what we have to consider confined spaces nowadays. I don't know. I've never been in a diversion tunnel of a dam, and I don't ever plan to be. But being trapped by carbon monoxide poisoning, probably a confined space. May 7, 1935, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. 7 miners riding up an elevator are killed when a large boulder crashes down the shaft. And I say where that boulder came from. July 17, 1944, Port Chicago, California. Naval Magazine, 35 miles from San Francisco, 4,600 tons of incendiary bombs explode during ammunition loading, killing 320 cargo handlers, crewmen, and sailors. What was going on in 1944? World War II. October 20th, 1944. An above-ground storage tank holding liquefied natural gas, one of many in the East Ohio Gas Company's tank farm, leaks vapor from a small seam. Winds from nearby Lake Erie push the vapor into a residential area where it drops into the sewers. When the vapor ignites, the explosion sends manholes flying and the sky filled by jets of fire, lifted by jets of fire. The ignited gas sets residential homes aflame along with people inside. 130 people die and hundreds more are left homeless. March 25th, 1947, Centralia, Illinois. A coal mine explodes, killing 111 miners. A federal inspection a week prior to the disaster showed no imminent danger. Sometimes you want these inspections, but it's March 1947, and guess what? Yours truly was in the world then by a few months, but I was around. I wasn't responsible for any of these incidents. So. April 16th and 17th, 1947, Texas City, Texas. The SS Grand Camp explodes while in port, killing 581 people. It had been holding roughly 2,300 of ammonium nitrate when someone noticed a fire on board. 581 people. August 9th, 1965, Searcy, Arkansas, and the Titan II underground missile silo, a rupture in the electrical system caused an explosion, trapping 53 men inside. None survive. Now, in 1965, I was actually in the Air Force, and I was probably in Montana at the time. And there were silos throughout North Dakota, pretty much around the area, missile silos. May 6, 1968, Nicholas County, West Virginia. An inrush of water from an unintentional holing through of a room into an abandoned mine traps 25 men inside the Saxes Well number 8 mine. 4 of the men die from drowning or fatal injuries. November 20th, 1968, Farmington, West Virginia. 78 miners die in a mine explosion when dangerous accumulations of loose coal and coal dust spark an explosion that spreads throughout the entire mine. Now, at the time, the company I worked for was called Decorator Industries. We had a drapery plant in Mannington, West Virginia, not too far from Farmington. And a lot of the women that worked there, they lost loved ones in that disaster. And they talked about it as a subject of a lot of sorrow in that area for many, many years, and probably still is. West Virginia, of course, is known for its coal mines. February 26, 1972, Logan County, West Virginia, in Buffalo Creek, one of the pits and coal company's coal slurry impoundment dam bursts, unleashing 175 million gallons of black wastewater, killing 125 people, leaving 4,000 homeless. Just 4 days earlier, a federal mine inspector had declared the dam satisfactory. You got these federal mine inspectors again. April 27, 1978, Willow Island, West Virginia. A partially constructed cooling tower at a coal power plant collapsed and sent 51 men to their deaths. And June of 78 is when I arrived in California. July 23rd, 1985, Romeoville, Illinois. At the Union Oil Company refinery, a worker notices vapors escaping from a tiny crack in a high-pressure 100-foot tower filled with gas. He works quickly to shut off the pressure valve, but a spark from an unknown source ignites the fumes. The subsequent explosion launches the 34-ton tank more than 3,400 feet in the air and engulfs much of the refinery in flames. 17 workers are killed in the fire. April 23rd, 1987, Bridgeport, Connecticut. A partially constructed 16-story apartment building at L'Ambiance Plaza collapses due to structural deficiencies, killing 28 construction workers. That's pretty sad when the building falls apart before you even get put together, isn't it? May 5th, 1988, Norco, Louisiana. An oil refinery kills 7 workers and leaves 42 injured. A malfunction in the catalytic cracking unit used to break down crude oil into gasoline is cited in the cause of the explosion. Norco, there's a Norco in California, a city called Corona, California, just outside of Los Angeles. And then Norco, when they made the city up, they couldn't think of a name for it, so they called it Norco as far as north of Corona. Thought you'd like to know that. June 28, 1988, Auburn, Indiana. At a local metal plating plant, the improper mixing of chemicals suffocates and kills 5 workers. The improper mixing of chemicals. July 6, 1988, North Sea. An American rig, the Piper Alpha, explodes and kills 167 men. This was a pretty famous one in the annals of process safety management, the Piper Alpha. Basically, boils down to most disasters in process safety management is the bean counters overrule the engineers. The engineers want to do and they don't get to do what they know they should do. October 23rd, 1989, Pasadena, Texas. A series of explosions near the Houston Ship Channel kills 23 people and injures 314. The blast occurs during a routine maintenance check on the Phillips Chemical plant's polyethylene reactor when a large quantity of flammable gas ignites. September 3rd, 1991. This was another pretty famous one in the poultry industry. At an Imperial Foods chicken processing plant, 25 workers die in an industrial fire after being trapped inside by the locked fire doors. The fire was caused by a faulty modification in a hydraulic line. In its 11 years of operation, the factory had never received a safety inspection. Now, the owner of this place, he was worried about theft, and he used his car and also to block the exit doors so people couldn't go out there and steal stuff from him. And from what I understand, he was sent to jail for this because of his negligence caused the death. And they were all piled up, this pile of people, bodies afterwards at the exits. They knew where the exits were and they tried to get out, but they were blocked. So that's really sad. March 23rd, 2005, Texas City, Texas. Poor working conditions and broken safety devices lead to a gas explosion at a British petroleum oil refinery. 15 people died in the blast and over 170 are injured. May 20th, 2006, Holmes Mill, Kentucky, a methane explosion at the Darby mine kills 5 workers. February 7th, 2008, Port Wentworth, Georgia. A dust explosion at the Imperial Sugar Refinery kills 13 people and injures more than 30 others. Imperial Sugar, famous combustible dust explosion. There's a CSB video on it. We may get to see that later. February 7th, 2010, Middleton, Connecticut. At an under construction power plant, 6 people die, at least 12 are injured in a gas explosion. Workers are clearing gas from the pipelines when the explosion occurs. April 5th, 2010, Montcole, West Virginia. At the Upper Big Branch mine, 29 people die in an underground explosion after a methane gas leak reduces oxygen levels to deadly levels and eventually ignites. The mine had a history of safety violations. Wow, this one had a history of safety violation and still had this disaster. Makes you wonder, huh? April 20th, 2010, Gulf of Mexico. Methane gas shoots up a Deepwater Horizon oil well, igniting from a spark in the rig's engines. The explosion kills 11 workers, and the incident results in the worst oil spill in U.S. history. There's probably several, but a CSB video on this one too. This is the Macondo well, or the Deepwater Horizon. And they were supposed to be moving this oil well. and they were having some problems with it and the blowout preventer and all that. And they estimated it would cost, it take 8 days and cost $8 million to do this safely, move it safely. But no, the engineers got overruled and they were told to move it now. So they did. And so instead of $8 million, it became like a $20 billion loss. And worse all, 11 workers died, and the worst oil spill in US history. So it's a classic example of that. So that's some of the worst into 2010. So there's probably been more, but hope not. So anyhow, that's it for this video.